Morning.
Hello,
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, Ab. How's it going?
What a friendly face to be seen here.
Well, I liked our coffee chat so much, I thought we'd come along to this.
Nice. Welcome, welcome. We've got so if I send that, do I have to resend it? I think I might. But that's our working doc for you, Chris. I think Mitch and Julia, you both have seen this before. But it's sort of our rolling notes. So if you look from May 28th near the top, you can add names and any topics. And I've got a bunch of stuff in there that's sort of rolling topics that we have.
Thanks. Yeah, I think I'll look at that this morning.
Cool. It was probably not as full. I think I finished filling it in about, I don't know, 25 minutes ago or so. I was completely prepared, Chris. Don't say anything otherwise. Just as people roll in. How's everyone doing? There was bank holidays in at least the UK and the US. Were any other countries off yesterday or just those two?
No, Italy is working. No.
On Thursday we have a bank holiday in parts of Germany.
Yeah.
Nice.
We have a 2nd of June for Italy, and the 2nd of June is Sunday, I think.
Sunday, yeah.
Yes.
Does that not roll to the Monday?
No.
Oh, you Italians are hardcore.
No, it depends on the year. It depends on the year.
Oh boy, at least in both the US and UK, I think, like set day holidays, they roll to like the closest
Really?
like thing.
No, yeah, in Italy we have a day extra paid in the salary, not the day off.
But you still have to work.
Yeah.
All right. I never thought I'd say that the US has better employment law than a European country, but maybe in this one case we get the day off still.
Norway don't do that either. But if it's a set day and it lands on the day you already are off, but everything else is better.
I said the one thing. To be fair, yeah. Robert, I said the one thing.
Yeah.
Cool. We've got most people in. I think most people are familiar with the doc. I see most people in the doc already, which is cool. Kick off in just a minute. I think what we usually kick off with is sort of 1-minute intros from anyone who wants to introduce themselves. So I noticed the last one, it was someone who hasn't been around for a while introduce themselves. If there's anyone who's new or just feels like they want to share something as a 1-minute intro as to why they're here and what they want to do, that will be what we kick off with. So have a think.
मैंने काम नहीं कर रहा बेटा, मैं आपके लिए बैठा हूँ.
Hey Saeem, just warning, I think you're on. I don't have the powers to mute you. I'm not admin. There you go. Great, thank you. I always like to help people out when they do that by accident, and I don't have the powers today. So, cool. So, would anyone like to do a quick 1-minute intro? Hello.
I'll do one since I'm a new face. Hello. I'm Chris Plank. I'm an enterprise architect, platform evangelist at NatWest Bank in the UK. I know Abby, I know a few other people from KubeCon. Attended the great coffee mornings, although they were ridiculously early in the morning after a hard night out. But no, I attended those chats. They were really good. So I just thought I'd come along and kind of start listening and start taking part. So hello, everyone.
Hello.
Thanks. Yeah, that's blame KubeCon keynote start times for
Yeah,
the
very
early
good.
morning. Anyone else want to introduce themselves? Anyone else? Old hat. Okay. So with the meetings, what we try and do is make space for discussions, as well as housekeeping / like already ongoing things. So if there's one thing I wasn't, Robert, you might be able to help me out here because I wasn't able to attend last week. There's a comment around, there's a couple things in the discussions from last week that looks like maybe we didn't get to them. So if you see something down there that you think should roll into this one that I haven't pulled up, if you could pull that up. So in particular, I'm thinking the what is chairs driving and supporting and the Kubernetes policy working group collaboration. Those two, I'm not sure if we touched on. So if we haven't, throw them on the list. So from a housekeeping perspective, just to call out, we have our community is continuing to do stuff around the work we do, and the Gitpod webinar series is on to part 2. So Pooja and Daniel, I think, are on the next session, and it's about, I think, adoption. So if you're interested, pop on and support and heckle as well. You can ask the hard questions, you know. But then more interestingly, stuff around ongoing work. So platform as a product people. I guess the update from last week was that interviews are expected soon. Is there any sort of updates from this session? Hey, Michael, just saw you pop on camera.
Dramatic effect. I'll keep it brief. We started those interviews. So we had one last week with a platform engineer. I know things have been really slow to get to this point. And I'm pairing with Oliver on those, and we're going to run through the whole loop of talking to a product leader next, and somebody from a lead from one of the consuming teams to kind of try to get that rounded perspective from kind of the strategic understanding and positioning of the platform to how, you know, like what are the practices on the ground, what's the thinking around how things are developed, and then gut checking that with somebody on the consuming side. You know, are they experiencing the benefits that this, you know, that were just discussed on the platform engineering side? In order to enable other folks to do that, it's been a long time coming, but there's going to be an interview guide along with the platform engineering script that has a little bit of refinement from this first interview, and a submission form. So when you're done the interview, it will walk you through explicitly, you know, what the expectation is of how to submit. And then we'll take over the process of kind of like pulling those things together, anonymizing them once we collect enough. On the other end will be a bunch of anonymized scripts that we can actually synthesize.
Amazing. Are you able to then get 3 interviews from a single organization? Is that what you mean by the well-rounded? So
yeah, so it's I'll put up a PR later today. It outlines in terms of what the ideal state looks like. I know that it's not always going to be possible to get all 3. And depending on, you know, who you are and what your network looks like, you might start with a product, like a platform leader, then go to somebody on the, you know, like a lead on the platform engineering side, and then the consumer. Maybe you won't. The thing we ran into with the Australian bank that we're running this at, I think, you know, in any kind of regulated industry, people are a little apprehensive about interviewing and being candid and asking for permission ahead of time. So obviously the way we're doing it is, and this is what's in the guidelines as well when you talk to folks, is very clear about anonymity and where that data is stored and who has access to it. That's paramount to this whole project, that this stuff doesn't just live in the ether and anybody can access it. Those controls are pretty tight, and we outline that, and I'll put up a PR where everybody can review what that looks like and give feedback, maybe in ways we can strengthen that process. That puts people more at ease. And then obviously personal relationships do the rest. You know.
So we also have a first blog post finally getting wrapped up for the interview, well, product thinking is what it's turned into, and should have a PR for that today. And then I will also post a PR for the announcement of the research so we can start publicizing it. And there'll be a reference to that post in the product thinking blog post. So give me sorry for a second.
Y'all are on a roll.
Starting to get things
multitasking.
Sorry, Super just came to look at our lock. Yeah, so we'll have those. We'll have the beginning of our blog series and be able to publicize. The other thing I'd say is once Michael has done the PRs, we already have a channel for prospective interviewers. We'll probably like have a session to go over the process and, you know, set expectations and everything. And we'll do that ad hoc in the in that channel. And that way everyone can sort of walk through the process. One important thing is that we would like video of, you know, video recording so that we can do whatever transcripting off of that. And then we'll probably just get rid of the video recording for privacy purposes.
Yeah, that
Cool.
Thanks, David. That's all going to be outlined. Our current thinking now is just to make sure that videos aren't kind of floating around, is that it's part of the responsibility of those folks who have signed up to interview and have opted into the kind of rules we have around privacy and data integrity and their and what's expected of them in order to be like stewards of that data, that they would host it on a temporary basis once we go through that transcription process. We'll let everybody in the group who has those videos know it's time to kind of delete them and remove them at the end of that process.
Awesome. And am I correct that channel's a private channel due to the anonymity issues? Is that right?
So yeah, so a few reasons. One is we want to keep the conversation really focused on people who are engaged in interviewing or about to be around feedback through that process to kind of keep it really focused. And the other part is, yeah, if any information comes up from the interviews, if anything sensitive comes up, it will be at least limited to interviewers. Above that, in terms of that process of taking videos, transcribing, and anonymizing, will be a smaller group of, kind of a handful of leads of the project, just to really limit the number of folks who see all the data.
Cool. So I've put down working group leads or you two, David and Michael, as the intros to that channel. Let me know if I should be adding anybody else, but that'll at least make sure people have multiple.
As well.
And Dominic. Yep. Cool. I can add Dominic as well.
The call out is for folks who are interested in running these interviews, whether you want to lead or whether you're just interested in pairing with people to be like that second interviewer in the pair, because for whatever reason you're motivated by, we have a form for you to fill out, and then I'll pull you into that channel.
Cool. Awesome.
And the blog post will mention the anonymity and confidentiality, because at the KCD New York last week, I saw David from the New York Times, who's actually been in here, was asking how the interview is going. It's like, are you, what about, oh, I don't know if we can talk about that. I was, so if we're really clear up front, we might get more people interested.
Awesome. Anyone else have any questions about platform as a product work? It seems like there's a lot of things that are going to come unearthed in the next week, which is awesome. So thank you all for helping make sure that happens. But any other questions from people around?
One note, in case I miss it, there were some requests from Leon and the tag level for presenting in Paris, and we really didn't get that. we didn't get that together. So I think it would probably be good to have something in Salt Lake City for sure. I'm not sure what yet the content would be, but it'd be good to have that. And if we could find out about the unconference track too, I think it'd make an awesome non-conference topic too.
Cool. That's a great point. I had meant to go track down the issue, and I finally did. So I just added into housekeeping that there's already talks going on for Salt Lake City KubeCon. So adding those kinds of comments so that we can track that people are interested in things. For example, I've been starting to track down a spot for morning coffees, and I've put a comment in there. It's not done yet, but just so people know that it's on the list. So
I've been chosen to kind of get some of that together. Hopefully I can. So if there is anything, just let me know and just put everything into the issue there so we have like open discussion about it.
I'd love to figure out and Abby knows this, that the clock will certainly run out on me before we actually get there, about the booth setup and things like marketing ourselves in Salt Lake City outside of purely having a platform day, which is going to be great. But it felt like there was a huge amount of discussion about platforms, but relatively little got funneled to us to be able to talk about it and get feedback from people.
Yeah. In itself, there's been a lot of discussion about, what are we supposed to do every time there's a KubeCon, because we keep on doing them several times a year, but we're never prepared. which makes no sense, but that's just how it is. So there will be more discussions on how to, how to do all this. But I agree, there should be more, funneling people into this group if they are interested in platforms, which a lot of people are.
I'll contact, since we're going a little long on this, I'll contact you offline. I had some ideas about a more interactive format, especially netting in users. We don't get enough users involved, and it'd be nice to figure out a way to find out what they need, since somebody spawned off a whole nother working group about the user experience.
I appreciate that.
I think to be fair about the additional working group, that is something I was not a part of the spinning off of it, but I'm actually excited to see the working groups are meant to be relatively confined in their topics and potentially even short-lived depending on their need for producing useful stuff. Platforms is looking to last a lot longer than maybe the average working group. But if you look at GitOps working group turned into Open GitOps project, and that was a success story, right? It turned out this is a much longer lived thing, and it needed the sort of governance and value associated with that project. So I think one of the things we're talking about for Salt Lake City is doing a talk with all the working groups under tag app delivery to talk about how they do interconnect and support, because it is early days for some of them, and making sure that we can enable the right conversations and the right support systems and the right focuses and stuff. So yeah, but you're right. It can look messy if you don't have that conversation in place. And so that's why we want to kind of knock it on its head really early with here's how these all work together and the value behind them and all. Okay. Cool. If there's nothing, any other questions about platform as a product, we'll move on to more different subjects. Going once. Going twice. Okay. So for other things, we've got a blog post. This is really exciting. I don't know if Julio, you want to talk about that? That's you, right? That was doing that blog post off of the platform schema. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Yes, I wrote this blog post because during the conversation on Slack, I don't remember who suggested me to try to write instead of it inside the issue, or we can say what is behind the proposal for the convergence between platform and platform white paper and platform as a what to say is platform, sorry, and also platform maturity model. And I try to write my opinion about the topics, and yeah, this is the starting point. Then as a blog post, I don't know where to publish that blog post. I asked for review. I don't know where, because I think that is a huge topic at the end, because there are a lot of people are working on the white paper or maturity model. A lot of we can say answers are already answered inside some of the paper. But in my opinion, when I speak with our customer, our prospects, so our colleagues, and our end users, a lot of time they are focusing on infrastructure and DevOps and just that. And when I speak with people about data engineering, they are creating another platform to manage data, another platform to manage machine learning, another platform to manage an API, and so on and so forth. Then I was wondering if we can converge in a way that that concept, I think that is already in place, the idea, but is not, you can say, completely, we can say publicized. We can say well known by people that are not in that context, that are not in the working group. And this is why I wrote the blog post. I don't know if you had the opportunity to read it, the time to read it, if you want to contribute, to review, whatever. And I would like to publish that blog post to provide my opinion in a holistic way about this topic. And because
That's
I
awesome.
open a lot of comments in the issue, then I stop it because there are a lot of comments that it's better to write something.
The comments are great, right? But the document gives now people a way to have like a coherent story of what you're thinking and all of that. So thank you for taking the time to do a blog post. For publishing, we have a tag blog. I'm not going to pretend that's got the highest viewership. So we can do repostings as well, in the sense that if you have access to a different publishing spot that you think would get more visibility, like, please do that. Like, we're not here to, hoard information. It's more to expose it. But yeah, more than like, we would love to have it on the tag blog, regardless of if you publish it elsewhere. And to get it on the tag blog is just a matter of opening a pull request. And I'm happy to walk through that with you at any time and give you an example of a recent one. And I guess David might be putting one up soon and can be a good point of contact for how to do that and all of that.
Okay.
So
because I want to keep it, to keep it vendor agnostic, because at the end, I am a vendor. I don't want to post that blog post in our blog at the beginning, because it's something that I would like to define together in the CNCF, not in our part,
Yeah. And that is one of the requirements. We've had a recent blog post that was originally a vendor blog post, but was very light on the vendor aspect. And but did have that, and that needed to be removed before reposting onto ours. And they've shifted it to be vendor neutral and add more example projects and things like that. So the fact that this is starting vendor neutral is very easy for us to have that conversation. So yes, I can't pretend I haven't been able to read it yet. Has anyone else read it? Does anyone have any questions or ideas or excitements around this that they want to chat about?
I haven't had the time to read it. I just recently saw that it happened. So I will be reading it. Obviously, at some point, if there are comments and stuff like that, and that's dealt with, then usually just pull requests to the website, and we do the nitty-gritty at that point.
Okay, I can do that. Yes, I will do a pull request. I fork the website. I will do a pull request for the website, and that way it's much more easy for comment on top. And the block, go on.
Because at the moment you have it's very closed, I think, because I don't think I can add a comment even.
No, you cannot. I because I do that in Sunday, and just pushing because I know that today was there is the meeting. I just provide you the link, and if you want to add a review, but because I'm not sure that I can create a pull request. I wasn't sure that I can create a pull request on the website at the beginning, and because we already reposted something from our blog, to CNCF, removing the vendor part.
Yeah.
But it's the first time that we write from scratch something that can be published directly in the CNCF. And if it's okay, I will open the peer request, and it's much more easy for everybody to access and provide the contribution. Yes.
Yeah, I was going to say Google.
Because just before, because usually we tend to. So if you put in a pull request, the main issue for me there is that it gets put into not a very visual context, and you kind of have to work. It's fine when it's code, right? But I see some of the things that are posted that are blog posts get a little convoluted and like hard to read through sometimes. What people tend to do is to have a Google Docs where people can comment on specific parts. So they can just take a section and say, add a comment. I would, want to see this happen, or do you mean this? If so, that needs clarification. Because if you get those kind of that type of work done before it becomes a pull request, then it's usually just like changing of certain texts and stuff like that, not like full on reading through and but yeah, sorry, Marsh.
No, go. That's fine. No rush. Yeah, I was glad to see this because I think we've already run into the limitations of commenting on the topic in GitHub, so it's better to have it as a Google Doc. Sharing for comment rights, I think, is the next step, but I think we already identified that. I did have a chance to skim it really briefly, and enough to know that I want to go back and read it more carefully. I was glad to see it. I think one of the things that's going to be tricky about this compared to the other blog posts that are either in process or published is that we're not going to agree on this as a group, right? This is an opinion piece, and we haven't yet figured out how to communicate that in these pieces. And that should also frame commenters' feedback as well, because Julio, this is your post and you should not feel obligated to satisfy everyone. This is an opinion. So I don't know how we balance that. I don't think it's going to be easy, but it's something to keep in mind as you read the document.
This is why I opened at the beginning here, because I'm not sure how to proceed. Because if you want to, we would like to everybody agree about the content. That means that we are going to create the white paper,
No, I feel quite strongly we need to have blog posts that people can write multiple angles on, right? So getting feedback is always a good thing for any blog post, but this is your blog post, and the barrier of entry, if you wanted to open this up as a PR without getting any other feedback, the things that we look for from a tag approval point of view is vendor agnostic, like if it is going against anything that's been published already by the tag, calling that out and acknowledging why and how. Not that you can't change, like defer your opinion away from the tag, but call out that you're doing so that it's not confusing. And basically just like kindness, like that there's you're writing in such a way that isn't disrespectful or anything. Like those are the key things we're looking for. Other than that, that's why we created the community contribution tag, to try and encourage a lower barrier of entry for these things, and to encourage people to write rebuttals. Somebody wrote something, and again, if you can rebuttal it with kindness, hey, I read this and I thought it was really interesting. This resonated with me, but this I've actually had a different experience. We want to encourage those kinds of opportunities. So.
But do you prefer that, just to understand it from my side, do you prefer that I keep it in the Google Docs and open it for review for a while, and then I switch to the PR on GitHub, or start from GitHub just right now?
It depends on how much consensus you want to get to. Google Docs will drive more conversation. That will be more load on you to manage that conversation and decide what you want to pull in and what you don't. In my opinion, I don't think you should keep that open on Google Docs for more than like a week, maybe 2 at most, probably a week, because otherwise you're just, as you said, writing another white paper. And the whole point of blogs is that we can exercise our ideas faster, so that when we come around to a white paper again, we already have some like touch points that we've started to have conversations about and merge towards and all that kind of idea.
And then if someone wants to be a reviewer on Google Docs, just send me a private message on Slack. Then we wait 1 week, and then we publish the PR on GitHub.
It would be, if you're going to keep it open on Google, I would recommend adding like comment. I think it's called like
reviewer.
Commentability is the reviewer or whatever.
I'm going to open just right now a reviewer for everybody, not a problem. And just
And then if it turns out that's a really bad idea, you can do that. You can feed that back to us. It will mean that you get more comments, but that's yours to take or to leave, right? Again, it's your blog post, and just keep that in mind. So
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for taking the time to like write that blog up. So
happy to contribute.
Yeah.
Also because I really trust that in the future, if we don't see an holistic view of platform, we will have the same problem of 20 years ago between IT operation and developers. This is my strong opinion about this topic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does anyone, so maybe
just
before
one
we
piece
move
of-
on,
Oh, sorry.
does anyone want to talk more about their view on that, like without having read the blog, given that there's no context there? Marsh, is that what you were hoping to speak on? I thought I saw your hand raised. Maybe I missed it.
Yeah, there's hand raised, but then they had to leave.
Fair. Does anyone, yeah, so the challenge of having a platform for each different type of offering, so data versus machine learning versus app dev versus whatever, are people seeing that in their organizations? Is that something they're seeing as a good pattern, bad pattern? Like,
so I'm seeing in the platform coffees and such and other forums, people are asking, is data a platform? Like, so there's this, I think there's this preconception that the platform is only Kubernetes and compute, right? Or cloud systems. So I think the umbrella needs to be larger, and people need to understand that if you're building things for other people to build on, then that counts as a platform. The thing I'd say is there is in most large enterprises a desire to have everyone on the one platform, but then it becomes so lowest common denominator that it stops being useful. And having a platform of platforms or ecosystem approach that kind of boils down, pieces of platform that can be reused to create end user experiences of platforms, that might be something that's going to have to happen at really large places, because you can't make a storage experience that is good for building a platform and also good for end users, right? So you're going to have intermediate stuff, and most people seem to be focused on a platform team right now, which is not going to work out in terms of scaling.
It depends how big your organization is, David, right? We talked about this in one of the coffee sessions at KubeCon. You know, I think the size of that enterprise, if you're only 1,000, 2,000 type employees, it's very different when you're talking 60,000 employees and how you go about that. You know, in my experience and what we're seeing, we are that fragmented as an organization. We do have different divisions, you know, so anything to do with AI sits with the data team. Anything to do with data sits with the data team. And that is by design. That's their focus area. That's kind of what they're good at. We're a hosting team that I sit within, you know, and then we've got an enterprise engineering team that's looking after the developer experience. But developers are only one part of the actual user population or the consumers of the platform. So we're ending up having lots of different platform teams. And I think, you know, Victor talked about it. I referenced it when I was talking at KubeCon. Victor did it, the whole, and I think KubeCrash as well. He was talking, I think back in March, it might have been March, April time, March, I think it was, about platforms or platforms or IDPs of IDPs. And that's kind of what we are seeing at the moment. I'm really interested in coming here to see if that's what other people are seeing as well, because we're having that debate at the moment. Should we centralize? Or is it okay to have multiple instances of IDPs that are for those individual teams to look after themselves, rather than trying to get back to that monolith, you know, of centralization? I'm not a big fan of centralization, to be honest. I much prefer the federal model.
Sorry, you said
federal. But hey, I'm looking forward to hearing other people say.
I think this is like endless discussion, I think, to be fair. but I agree. That's kind of what I preach, that like centralized IT is not what we want, but we kind of need to have some sort of like collaboration way of collaborating that makes sense. So I don't think, and as always, it all depends. There's no right answer because I don't know who I'm talking about. So in any one company, there might be even several ways of dealing with this, and that makes sense for them. So, but I think if you're a big enough company and you have multiple platforms, that's not a bad thing as long as people are building platforms not in an echo chamber, but kind of actually communicate what they're doing and learning from each other and making it more efficient and so on and so forth. If there's like 6 different teams that are building platforms and they don't talk, that's not great.
That's
no
what
matter
I've
how
been
big.
seeing. Yeah. Sorry, go on, Michael. Go on.
I just wanted to say that first of all, Julia's work is
Julio.
really good. So thank you for contributing it. I think one of the things that experience taught me maybe was you look at kind of this, if we look at the center part of the aspects, so you look at adoption, interfaces, and operations. And if you treat those as how you manage an experience rather than how you manage a task, we can get to a point where there is an ML platform perspective, and there's a DevOps platform perspective, and there's, because they need different. Some of the tools are the same, right? But some of them aren't. And to Chris's point, the more you handcuff an enterprise team, the more they get divorced from the overall thread of things. So you want people to share some of the commonality. I mean, it was made the greatest common factor, least common denominator came up. I think you're in a position to actually do both, right? Because we have people looking at it from the bottom up and the top down, and that's not a bad thing. I'll stop there. But
we're doing that, Michael. The way we're doing that kind of collaboration, we're using Git really in the Omni repo approach for that. So that if we seed it with some examples, right, then other teams can copy, they can contribute to that. So we're really going after the contribution model, not as a single entity, but something that they could, take a copy of, come up with their own platform using the same kind of approach, and eventually get to the point of going, well, we've got the tools, so actually come and use this platform instead.
That's really
but not
good.
as that's the carrot, not the stick sort of approach, I think.
Nice. Journeys and stories, right, are kind of, I think, would help that, right? You're creating stories, and you maybe I don't know, talk too much to this group because you all know more than I do. A journey is like what the platform supplies, and the stories are what the individual perspectives build, right? So it gives you an opportunity to have a thread and a theme for both the strategic and the operational pieces.
Abby, a question. I'd love to talk more about this. It seems like there are some topics that could just use like kind of sessions of their own, because sometimes we have room for it today, but other times we have like so much going on that we can't just do free form. I mean, would it be useful to have like the logistics of it could be difficult because this is a place on people's calendars. Although it's back on my calendar because I adjusted the one I copied. But just to like have some way to, do a special topic discussion with as many people that can join, recorded and that sort of thing. I don't know if there's a mechanism for that.
So we've done that before and they've been very one-off. So we need to get our house in order a little bit, first of all, in that while this is being recorded, we don't have access to the recordings right now. So we are working on getting access to all recordings and getting them all up on YouTube. So sorry about that. Lottery effect, right? Of like who has access to what. I wouldn't want to guarantee, recorded calls until we have a way of knowing we have ownership over where those videos go and can load them up and that kind of thing. But there's a world where we basically treat this hour as like usable across any number of weeks. And so if people want to sort of keep this hour, we only use it as a working group twice a month. But if people want to use this hour and announce that in the working group Slack channels and in the working group calls to be used for a more in-depth conversation, I don't think, look, we're a bunch of humans. If we want to get together and chat, we can. It's just a matter of finding that time. And yeah, happy to help get that word out with people. But I think the channels are basically the Slack, these calls, and we can put stuff on calendars, but that's a bit of a heavier lift. So I think, yeah, have to make sure that that makes sense to do. Like, are we actually picking people up with those calendar invites, or are we just doing the admin behind it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and as for like finding time, yeah, exactly, you're right. I wanted to leave some time for this because it seemed like an interesting conversation. We have one more thing that might be an interesting conversation, so I was gonna see if we can get through some of the other kind of chorey ones, and then maybe have time for one last kind of 15-minute shallow dive, maybe not a deep dive. But to action that right away, David, is that something, Julio, you'd want to do? So like if we were to say this time next week on Tuesday, like synchronous chat about this topic, is that something that people in this group, with or without the blog post, actually, I don't mean to attach it to the blog post, is that something people would want to do? Would we want to announce that in Slack? Like, we can use this Zoom. The Zoom is ours to use. I just can't promise the recordings anywhere until we get ownership of them again.
Yeah, if you want, we can organize. Yes, for I'm free, and yes, I can. I don't know. Help me for logistics, but I can organize the. I think that is a brainstorming at the end that we can reuse all the material that are linked in the blog post and to brainstorm and figure out if there is something that is useful for people in that meeting and to start also other conversation. Yeah.
Okay. And so
just before we move away from that, just really quickly, I think it's a very good idea to set up these one-off things, because this hour that we have, I kind of look at it at kind of, not really because it's an hour long, but kind of like a stand-up type thing. If stuff starts to get out of hand, you don't really have the time to discuss it properly. So if we did more of these one-offs when we have these kind of topics, I think that would be very good for the entire community to have those kind of like discussion forums, if you like, on specific topics.
If somebody wants to set that up, so I would typically default to using this Zoom because everyone knows where it is, but also it doesn't actually matter. If somebody could get a recording of this, we can get this on our YouTube. So if somebody wants to set that up, the call as in like make an announcement in Slack that this is happening, and throw a Google Meet or Zoom link on there that you can get a recording to, please self-organize that. And yeah, as I said, we're definitely not attempting to be gatekeepers here. We are here, as Robert said, as more of like a stand-up to try and enable people than anything else. So yeah, go forth, and I hope I can attend is all I can say.
So I've been doing a lot of this kind of stuff lately, so I'd be happy to do the market, and I could use my Zoom, which I can have access to.
I think Nick and
I think
David maybe catch up on that.
We can do a lot broader. I think we could get more participation if we have specific topic interest too. Like we can kind of market it, and I don't think it'd ever be too big to have a useful discussion, but we could definitely use more community users and such involved in these too.
Yeah.
One of the things that's I'm sorry, Abby, didn't mean to cut you off. One of the, but I did. Sorry. One of the things that, to David's point, that comes out of these is that you can get essentially a blog post that says we had several people get together about a specific topic. Here's a snapshot for what people are thinking about this topic right now, and that ended up being really, people found that to be helpful. So I guess my point is I think it's a great idea, and thanks for thinking of it.
Yep. Yeah, happy to put that on the blog if it's helpful. Yeah, happy to help basically get that information where we can. So we have a LinkedIn account that we can post to and things like that. So I will leave that. As I said, I think it's Nicola and David. I think you two have the right combo. If you two can connect and get that sorted, that'd be awesome. Thank you both. Okay, so on a maybe quicker note, we have translations out of our ears, which is amazing. Translations are really hard work, and we value everyone who takes the time to do it. And it's particularly hard work because we require a second native speaker. So I just wanted to call attention to the fact that there's a bunch of translations in the works right now, that if anyone has themselves native speaking experience or friends and colleagues with native speaking experience, they could help with PR reviews. Norwegian, French, Spanish, Japanese, and Korean could all use a bit of eyes, either with fresh translation or review. Particularly, I think the Japanese and Korean ones are like a very small update that was made, but we want to make sure it stays native across the languages. So that's an easier one maybe to pass on to people. So
I think there's sorry, lost my train of thought as soon as I started talking. I saw an issue that came in, and I think you, Hiroshi, were tagged in it as a comment for getting someone else to look at it. But we just had like the Chinese maturity model update, which, like I mentioned a couple of times, that it technically looks good. For all I know, those are the right words, and it's all in the right place. Everything's good, but it just gets hard when it's a language that you kind of, especially those languages that are, sometimes the words are interpretations of the English word and not just, you can Google Translate it and go like, yeah, that's probably okay for all I know. And yeah, some Japanese stuff is can get a little bit like that as well. So anyone that speaks these languages that can look into the issues that are open, that have those, even if you just take a couple seconds to look at it and then go like, yeah, this seems okay, this helps a whole lot for people trying to merge which kind of is me now. So thank you. So thank you.
Awesome. I think that's sort of just a call for help. So I'm going to suggest we move on to the next set, which I think is also a little bit of a call to help. If there's no other translations asks. Okay, so the next set of things are things that have been around for a really long time. That I think I would encourage us to close with comment. They can always get reopened if they re-energize in some way or they get shifted. So calling attention, particularly David and Michael, the recruiting and insights from KubeCon EU 2024, I think is the platform as a product piece of work. It's not that wasn't important piece of work, but like KubeCon EU 2024 recruiting is now sort of past. So either it's an update to the intention of that story, or like closing it as completed and moving on to the next recruiting story would be cool. And I'll look to take that action in the next kind of week or two if I haven't seen movement. We then have the platform of platforms between things, which has sort of become this kind of set of discussions and this blog and those kinds of things. That, along with the one above that, which is the platform engineering maturity model question and concern. I think what we're going to do, Robert, I'm doing this very ad hoc. You can tell me if I'm speaking out of line here. Is I think what we want to do is try and collect these kinds of things in a list of like what to review when we look for a V2 of these documents. So the platform white paper is now going on, what, 3 years? I think it was published.
The white paper was published for KubeCon Amsterdam.
Which would, so we're going on 2.5 years. So London will be 3 years with that white paper. Maturity model is only just over a year. So we're probably not looking at rewriting the maturity model right away. And even the white paper, acknowledging the amount of effort with things like translations and the amount of need to learn, rather than just kind of churn on something of that scope and scale. We want to be thoughtful about it. But that doesn't mean we also want to be dismissive of learnings. We want to make sure we capture those so we don't miss them and we don't track them. So we're probably going to figure out a way to capture those things somewhere. And I don't want to close these issues till we have a way to capture them. But you might see these issues closing in preference of capturing them towards a future V2. So don't be
I
surprised.
think having some sort of a gathering issue, the literal translation from Norwegian term, a gathering issue, would make a lot of sense. I mentioned a couple of times that the platform's white paper is something that I think we could start working on the second edition of, but at the same time, we don't want to rewrite the entire thing. We want to add something constructive to it. So if we gather these things together in not too long, maybe we'll start talking a little bit more explicitly about doing the second white paper, a second edition of the white paper. Then we have something to kind of pick from. I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'm almost thinking like we can start an issue, but what I'm concerned, as I'm thinking out loud, I'm concerned about an issue is that like we'll end up in thread, like GitHub issues doesn't have threading. And then as soon as you get sort of a new topic, it sort of can go nuts. So I'm wondering if what we actually want is more of like a Google Doc where you can sort of nest things and reorg things and put things together and have comments and do all that. So
if you want that, we can use discussions. No one is kind of using discussions, but discussions, at least anyone can put something into discussions, and from there people can comment on that particular, idea.
Maybe that's where we push these things then. Let's take that offline. If anyone has like a experience with this and wants to like have input, just give a shout in the Slack, and you can do it in the public working group platforms channel. There's nothing private about this. I just don't want to we've got quite a large group here and it's sort of organizational debate, so we can sort that out. But yeah, we're going to somehow capture these things. And then the last one is we have this encouraging blogs. That was my hope, that more people would write blogs. It hasn't particularly, it's worked because we've got one coming out. Thank you, Julio. But at the same time, it's not like we've seen this like swamp of them. I feel like this issue is one of these things that can last on forever. And so I'm inclined to close it with a encouraging comment of, blog post welcome, but this issue is not actionable per se. So if anyone feels like there's something more actionable that we can do, or there's a reason to keep this open, let me know. Again, I'm not going to close it today. I'm going to leave it open for a couple of days in case something comes up, but that's my plan.
On that topic, I'd be really interested in what this particular group thought would be a good idea for topics. Right? So,
yeah, that is something we haven't talked about, which I guess kind of makes sense. Because if we have certain topics that people want to see written, but at the same time, it's I think the more blog posts we get out and kind of openly share that we have these blog posts, more people will be interested in posting stuff. So it's kind of like the snowball effect, right?
Yeah.
So the easy marketing thing, but the marketing technique is take something like the white paper, which people may not read all the way through, and just break it into smaller content and essentially reuse the same piece of large content for blog posts. And there are companies that even specialize in doing this kind of thing. But I'm sure we could do it ourselves too. And that would be an easy way to get some of the pieces of that, all of those concepts out there. You could do the same with the maturity model too. And the idea is not to get super opinionated and away from the original material. It's just to break it down for people to be able to absorb differently.
That also makes sense.
God, I sound like a marketer. I am not a marketer, I swear. Like
really? I think you'd be good.
The best marketers don't say they are. They kind of just sneak up behind you and go like, buy this thing.
Hi there.
The worst ones say they're not when really they are. So
yeah, those are the best ones.
Like the subtweet Marsh. Yeah, so that's a really good point, David. I think that right now to Michael's point, like what would be good blog posts? We haven't captured that would be a good idea, but we also I'm hesitant to capture that as a piece of work without somebody driving it, because that's where we end up with these like long-lived, like, we should do something about that. And like hard to actually get it done. So maybe what we can do is throw that into the Slack channel as like, here's an idea. Like, without an owner, we probably won't pick this up in the near term, but it's not some. It's not
I'm
something
willing
that'll
to give
age
it a
poorly.
look because I'm really behind on blogging in general, and I owe you one, and it's halfway done on cognitive load. But I wouldn't. I'm actually going to see how much work Claude can do on it, because really it's just extracting concepts and figuring out, like, I'm just going to ask it, how many different blog posts could we generate off of this doc, things like that. Because again, it's not meant to be like original content. It's just reuse of existing. So
awesome.
if it starts to become a rabbit hole, I'll let you know.
Cool. As I said, it's like, I'm definitely a huge fan of it. I think it's a great idea. I just am aware that we all have our own time pressures, and everyone gets very excited about things in a good way. And it's like, I don't want anyone feeling pressure to complete something that like is very optional in nature, right? It would provide great value, but is also optional in nature. So awesome. Well, we'll see where that gets to. And if you need any help with that, please do shout and find collaborators both in Slack and on here. So we've got only a couple minutes left. The last thing that I was going to suggest for a discussion, and maybe I'll push it out to the next one, assuming I'm present, is there's been a suggestion of, so for those that were around when we went from white paper to maturity model, the big value there, the big reason why that was a driver, was because people wanted a more concrete way to apply the white paper. So they saw the white paper and they wanted something more concrete. They all said, tell me what projects to deploy. And we said, not going there. And so we did maturity model to give people practices and techniques and ideas, right? There's now an ask to go concrete again from the maturity model, which is, to be clear, not surprising. People always want something more concrete, more applicable. The fine folks at AWS have suggested that there might be a way of helping people self-measure against the maturity model. So you've read this whole document, you understand conceptually the framework, but where do you sit exactly, and how do you roll this out to an organization, like to think about across teams and things if you want to? And in talking about it, the idea basically was, we're not quite at the point of automating it, because to automate something, you have to understand something. But there's probably something that we can provide structure and support around. And so something to the effect of like an AWS well-architected review, a set of questions that help you identify where your risk lies. It doesn't tell you you're good or you're bad. That was a really big principle of writing the maturity model. We aren't telling people they're good or bad. We're telling people the impact of the investment they're making and the risks and things. And so Corbin from AWS is working on sort of capturing his ideas there, because he was really the driver of this, and going to put out a document that sort of indicates some of his thinking. But we don't have time to discuss this today, but we can discuss it on the next one. Having a think of what might it look like to generate something within the group that would be a more broadly applicable, so more community level way of measuring yourself against the model. And how have you used it in your organization? How could you see that be useful for other organizations, and that kind of thing? Be something to think on. First reactions to that as well, like, is that, are open in things in the last couple minutes here. So yeah.
Every time there's like a big technical thing to undergo, it's kind of scary, because you want to make some sort of like process around that. It's going to be a lot of work. We might need to be more explicit on certain things in the maturity model to kind of be able to do that. But I at least like the idea of that work, or those things, you get the ball rolling, start talking about how you can do those kind of things. Create that particular framework or assessment tool, or whatever we call things these days. I don't know anymore. So I think it makes sense as a project to undergo, but we also need to be a little bit wary about how much stuff we start, right? I don't know, Marsh.
Yeah, I'll add to that because I think it's a good point, Robert. The so as you were talking, Abby, and I was trying to pour my cereal. Sorry for that. The thing I was wondering is that how much of the platform as a product research is actually going to inform this? Because my understanding was that as we talk to companies at various stages, we're finding an evidence-based indication of the kinds of things that emerge at different levels of maturity. And I think that is a way in which to then give people a way to measure themselves. So my hope is that that's got a lot more basis in fact versus opinion. Am I wrong to think about it that way? Not that something. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it all interlinks somehow. And again, we might need to get kind of the research stuff going and products or platform as a product research done to be able to update the maturity model to reflect some of that, so that we at that point maybe can make a maturity model risk assessment tool. Again, a lot of these things, it's not like someone, both the architecture framework from AWS and the cloud adoption framework from Microsoft and all those things, they don't just like pop out of nowhere. It is based on the fact that they've been doing this for so long, and now they have like not even opinions, but actual stuff to back it up with.
Yeah, and I think that like there is a lot of humility with that, just to be clear on like the incoming of this project, of getting started with something which basically codifies the stuff that's already in the maturity model to try and identify those patterns to get more clarity on suggestions, right? So helping people figure out their investment levels on those different aspects and like what they need and stuff is different than saying, given that, you should do this thing next, which might be something that can only come from extended research and things like that. So all really good points. I think I want to call out, we're now a minute over, but we're getting a whole lot of new friends, which tells me that there are calendars that are out of date probably. So hi, new friends that have joined us at what is 5 p.m. BST, British Standard Time. The meeting has moved to being pinned to British time as of 1 or 2 sessions ago, Robert, correct me?
One.
The last session.
Only one.
Yeah.
So it was causing havoc to have it pinned to UTC because it meant that 6 months of the year, other meetings that were on the same schedule as our meeting would go into conflict. So so people would basically get themselves in thing. So it means that we have some casualties as we make that move. I very much apologize. But in the long run, this will hopefully be easier. So it would be great to hear from you if you have this, how you found out about the time, so that we can try and correct if it's in any locations that we can change. My hypothesis is it's stuff that's on your calendars already and that I can't change those for you. But if there is somewhere that we are out of date online, we have tried to update it everywhere else. So please let me know.
Robert pointed out that I probably copied it from, there's a giant Google Calendar that's just way too much to have on your own. So I just copied the event.
And then that isn't going to auto update. Exactly.
Yeah, because you're not copying that particular meeting with a reference to that calendar when you're opening
possible.
Google.
There's no way.
So
to
you're
do that.
literally just like carbon copy to your calendar, and if that changes, your doesn't.
I'm really frustrated that there's no easy service to subscribe yourself to an actual calendar, like invite yourself, because I need that for other things too.
It's possible with the Microsoft calendars, but
It is. I'll use Microsoft Calendar if I have to, because once you're sending invites, it doesn't matter what system it is.
This is one of the things I can go into a deep rabbit hole on, like discussing. So we can
offline.
Yeah. As the Microsoft centric person, maybe one of the most Microsoft centric person in this group, I'm not gonna go into that.
I am going to, again, just sort of push. We're a few minutes over now, so I'm going to have to leave myself Doesn't stop anyone else from staying on and having a chat, to be clear, if you all want to. But we've actually taken fairly good notes from today, and I do send my apologies. If you have any questions or ideas or whatever, anything that you want to talk about, come find us in Slack and start an async channel. And the next meeting is June 11th, and I've added that onto the calendar or onto the doc now in case there's something that you wanted to bring up today and you want to add it to like things to discuss for next time, like now while your head is sort of here and aware of things. So trying to do as much as we can to try and capture y'all. I apologize for the time mix-ups for you. So yes, I'm sorry. I do need to run to something else though, but this has been lovely. And as I said, feel free to have a chat if that's best.
Thanks, Abby.
Thanks, Abby. I have to leave as well. So hopefully next time I see twice as many people in the meeting.
I was apparently one of the time casualties because I just showed up thinking I was on time.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Me too.
Sorry. That's also why
Colin,
I
need to catch up with you.
This.
So nice to see your face.
You too, Herbert.
All right, buddy. Talk soon.
All right,
Colin, have you seen Giulio's blog post?
Maybe there's been a lot of blog posts.
There's a
whose
platform.
was it?
It's Platform Plus Plus. Take a look in the notes. I know it's a topic you were really interested in.
Platform Plus Plus.
This one I copy also in the message.
I'm gonna try and get a one-off discussion going about it too, just the whole topic.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot here.
Okay, then we can schedule another meeting for next week on the same time and on the same day.
Yeah, we'll go for that.
Yeah,
I'm doing a presentation at that point, but I'm looking forward to hear what you guys find out.
If I host it, I'll be able to publish a video.
All right. Well,
Nicola,
thanks everyone.
A message on LinkedIn or something.
thank you.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Yeah, same. Bye.
Or morning. Depends.
Lunch. It's lunchtime here.
A good lunch. Yeah. Thank you, David. Bye bye.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye.